The ancient world was a tapestry of empires, tribes, and cultures, forever vying for dominance and survival. At the heart of this struggle lay the mighty Roman Empire, its legions marching relentlessly outward, conquering and absorbing new lands. Yet, the Romans, in their insatiable hunger for expansion, often encountered fierce resistance from those who refused to bow to their rule. Among the most formidable foes Rome ever faced were the Germanic tribes, fierce warriors who inhabited the dense forests and rugged lands beyond the Rhine. And from among these tribes rose a leader who would forever etch his name in the annals of history, Arminius, the chieftain who dared to defy the might of Rome. Arminius's story is one of courage, cunning, and unwavering determination. Born into a time of conflict and raised amidst the simmering resentment against Roman rule, he would rise to become a symbol of Germanic resistance. His leadership in the devastating ambush of 3 Roman legions at the Battle of Teutoburg Forest in 9 AD shattered the myth of Roman invincibility and dramatically altered the course of history. This decisive victory, a testament to Arminius's strategic brilliance, not only halted Rome's eastward expansion but also ignited a firestorm of rebellion that would forever define the relationship between Rome and the Germanic tribes. So, how did Arminius become this legendary warrior, this symbol of resistance? Well, it's a pretty interesting story. He was born around 18 or 17 BC. His tribe, the Cherusci, were a big deal. They lived between the Weser and Elbe rivers. Now, this was a time of a lot of tension between the Romans and the Germanic tribes. See, the Romans, led by Emperor Augustus, were trying to take over Germania. They wanted to make it part of the Roman Empire. They were pretty serious about it. When Arminius was just a kid, probably around the age some of you watching are now, he and other sons of important Germanic families were taken hostage by the Romans. The Romans did this a lot. They thought it was a good way to make sure conquered people stayed loyal, but it kind of backfired with Arminius. The Romans trained him in their army. He learned all their tricks, how they fought, how they planned their battles. He was good, really good. He became a Roman citizen and even got a high rank in their army. But even though he was living like a Roman, Arminius never forgot where he came from. He never forgot his people and their fight for freedom. As Arminius rose through the ranks of the Roman auxiliary army, serving with distinction in various campaigns across the empire, he carried with him the weight of his dual identity. To the Romans he was a model auxiliary officer, a symbol of their success in assimilating conquered peoples. He was granted Roman citizenship, a rare honor for a non-Roman, and even attained the prestigious rank of equestrian, a testament to his loyalty and service to Rome. Yet beneath the veneer of Romanization, Arminius never truly abandoned his Germanic roots. He maintained contact with his family and tribe, closely following the events unfolding in Germania. Reports of Roman abuses, heavy taxation, and attempts to suppress Germanic culture reached him, fueling his anger and solidifying his resolve to resist Roman rule. He understood that his Roman citizenship and military achievements meant little if his people remained enslaved. The Romans, blinded by their own hubris, remained oblivious to the growing storm brewing within their seemingly loyal German officer. They saw in Arminius what they wanted to see: a loyal servant, a testament to the power of Romanization. They entrusted him with greater responsibilities, unaware that they were handing the reins of their destruction to the very man they had sought to mold in their image. Arminius, for his part, played his role to perfection. He maintained his loyalty to Rome outwardly, all the while carefully observing, learning, and waiting for the opportune moment to strike. He knew that a direct confrontation with the Roman legions would be suicidal, the Germanic tribes divided and lacking the discipline and organization of the Roman army could not hope to defeat them in open battle. He needed a different strategy, one that would exploit the Romans' weaknesses and leveraged the terrain and conditions of Germania to his advantage. The simmering resentment against Roman rule, long suppressed beneath the surface, finally erupted into open rebellion in 9 AD. The catalyst was the brutal and inept governorship of Publius Quinctilius Varus, a Roman aristocrat with little understanding of or respect for the Germanic people. Varus's heavy-handed policies, including the imposition of harsh taxes, attempts to extend Roman law and administration into Germania, and disrespect for Germanic customs and traditions, alienated even those tribes who had previously been willing to cooperate with Rome. Arminius, now a seasoned military commander with intimate knowledge of Roman tactics and weaknesses, recognized the opportunity to unite the disparate Germanic tribes against their common enemy. He leveraged his reputation as a Roman officer to gain the trust of Roman commanders, all the while secretly forging alliances with various Germanic leaders, uniting them under his banner of resistance. He understood that the key to defeating the Romans lay in luring them into a trap, a battleground of his choosing where the Romans' superior numbers and discipline would be negated. The dense and treacherous Teutoburg forest, with its narrow paths, thick undergrowth, and unpredictable terrain, provided the perfect setting for his audacious plan. Arminius, a master strategist, planned to use the forest itself as a weapon, transforming it into a green hell from which the Roman legions would never escape. As Varus, oblivious to the impending danger, led his 3 legions deeper into the heart of Germania, Arminius and his allies prepared to spring their trap. The stage was set for one of the most famous and consequential battles in ancient history, a battle that would determine the fate of nations and reshape the political landscape of Europe for centuries to come. Okay, so the Romans are marching deeper and deeper into the Teutoburg forest, right? Arminius knows it's go time. He's got this plan, and it's a good one. He's gotten all these different Germanic tribes who usually hate each other to team up. How? He promised them they could kick the Romans out of their land. That's something everyone could agree on. He also tricked Varus, the Roman general. He sent him a fake message about some trouble up north, so Varus takes his 3 legions right into a trap, the deep, dark forest. Now, the Roman army, they like big open fields where they can show off their fancy formations and discipline. This forest, totally different. Narrow, muddy paths, you can't see anything, and someone could jump out at you any second. Their nice, neat lines got all messed up. And then it started raining, cold, hard rain. They're getting soaked, they're slipping and sliding, and they're definitely not happy. Arminius is smart. He's not going to charge straight at the Romans. That would be silly. He knows these guys are tough. So he sets up ambushes. His warriors pop out of the trees, throw their spears, and disappear again before the Romans can even react. The Romans, they can't fight back properly. Their heavy armor and big shields, usually super helpful, are just slowing them down in the forest. They're getting attacked from all sides. And they're freaking out, these legions. Everyone thought they were unbeatable, right? Well, they're about to get totally wiped out. Arminius's years of service in the Roman army were a double-edged sword. On the one hand, he gained invaluable military experience, mastering Roman tactics and strategies, and gaining first-hand knowledge of their strengths and weaknesses. He witnessed the effectiveness of Roman discipline, the innovative use of siege weaponry, and the sheer organizational might that had subjugated much of the known world. This knowledge would prove crucial in his later struggle against Rome. However, his time in Rome also exposed him to the darker side of Roman imperialism. He witnessed the arrogance and brutality often meted out to conquered peoples, the casual cruelty inflicted upon those deemed barbarians by their Roman overlords. The stories he heard from his Germanic homeland painted a bleak picture of Roman occupation, tales of extortionate taxation, the seizure of ancestral lands, and the systematic suppression of Germanic culture and traditions. The Romans, for their part, remained oblivious to the simmering resentment building beneath the surface. They saw in Arminius a model example of their policy of Romanization, a testament to their belief in their cultural and military superiority. They entrusted him with greater responsibilities, unaware that they were unwittingly nurturing the very instrument of their downfall. Each victory Arminius secured for Rome, each promotion he received, only served to deepen his inner conflict. He grappled with the weight of his dual identity, the Romanized officer bound by duty and honor, and the Germanic chieftain who yearned for the freedom of his people. The appointment of Publius Quinctilius Varus as governor of Germania in 7 AD proved to be a turning point in Arminius's life. Varus, an ambitious but arrogant aristocrat, embodied the worst excesses of Roman rule. Unlike his predecessor Tiberius, who had adopted a more conciliatory approach towards the Germanic tribes, Varus sought to impose Roman rule with an iron fist. Varus viewed the Germanic tribes as little more than unruly subjects ripe for exploitation. He imposed crushing taxes, confiscated land for Roman settlements, and sought to replace traditional Germanic laws and customs with Roman ones. He treated the proud Germanic warriors with disdain, further inflaming their resentment. Arminius watched Varus's actions with growing alarm. He understood that the governor's heavy-handed policies were pushing the Germanic tribes towards open rebellion. He saw an opportunity to exploit the situation, to unite his fractured people against a common enemy. However, Arminius also understood the risks involved. He knew that a premature or poorly planned uprising would be crushed mercilessly by the legions. He needed to choose his moment carefully, to forge alliances and develop a strategy that played to the strengths of the Germanic warriors while exploiting the weaknesses of the Roman army. Torn between his loyalty to Rome and his love for his people, Arminius made a fateful decision. He would feign loyalty to Varus, all the while secretly plotting his downfall. He would use his position within the Roman army to gather intelligence, sow discord, and ultimately lure the legions into a trap from which they would never escape. It was a dangerous gamble. Discovery meant certain death, not only for him, but for his family and tribe. Yet Arminius was driven by a powerful conviction, the belief that his people deserved to be free from Roman tyranny. He understood that the price of freedom would be high, but he was prepared to pay it. He began by subtly undermining Roman authority, encouraging resistance among the tribes while maintaining a facade of loyalty to Varus. He skillfully manipulated events, exploiting Roman arrogance and underestimating the cunning and resolve of his people. His plan was audacious, relying on deception, timing, and the exploitation of the harsh Germanic terrain. He knew that the Germanic tribes, with their decentralized structure and lack of formal military training, could never hope to defeat the legions in open battle. His strategy hinged on luring the Romans into a trap, a battleground of his choosing where the legion's numerical and tactical superiority would be nullified. Word of Arminius's clandestine efforts spread like wildfire through the dense forests and across the swirling mists of the northern rivers. Germanic tribes, long divided by ancient rivalries and suspicions, found common cause in their hatred of Roman oppression. Arminius, with his charisma, strategic acumen, and intimate knowledge of Roman tactics, emerged as the natural leader of this burgeoning rebellion. Secret meetings were held under the cover of darkness, oaths of loyalty sworn under the watchful eyes of the ancient gods. Warriors honed their skills, The deadly accuracy of their javelins, the crushing force of their axes, the lightning raids from the forest shadows. A spirit of defiance, long suppressed, now burned brightly in the hearts of the Germanic tribes. Arminius, meanwhile, played his role to perfection. He maintained a close relationship with Varus, feeding him misinformation while carefully observing the movements of the legions. He identified the perfect location for his ambush, the Teutoburg forest, a labyrinth of dense undergrowth, narrow paths, and treacherous bogs. It was a place where the Roman legions, accustomed to the order and discipline of open battlefields, would be stripped of their advantages, forced to confront an enemy that could strike from the shadows and melt back into the impenetrable foliage. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reverberate through history, a clash of civilizations that would determine the fate of nations and redefine the balance of power in the ancient world. The stage was set for a confrontation that would echo through the annals of history. Arminius, having carefully assessed the Roman army's movements and exploiting their unwavering belief in his loyalty, chose the Teutoburg forest as the battleground. This dense and unforgiving forest, with its narrow paths, treacherous bogs, and limited visibility, would be the Roman legions' undoing. The legions, weighed down by their equipment and baggage train, snaked their way through the forest, their formation stretched thin by the narrow paths. The rain, relentless and cold, had transformed the ground into a muddy morass, further hindering their progress. They were entering a green hell, unaware that they were walking into a carefully orchestrated trap. Arminius, a master of timing and deception, waited for the opportune moment to strike. He had strategically positioned his warriors along the Roman line of march, concealed within the dense undergrowth, their knowledge of the terrain giving them a decisive advantage. As the Roman column stretched further into the forest, vulnerable and disoriented, Arminius gave the signal for the attack. The initial assault, a sudden and terrifying barrage of javelins, took the Romans completely by surprise. The Germanic warriors, masters of camouflage and guerrilla warfare, emerged from the undergrowth, unleashing their fury upon the unsuspecting legionaries. The air filled with the deadly hiss of javelins, the clash of steel, and the screams of the wounded. The Roman response, hampered by the terrain and the suddenness of the attack, was slow and disorganized. The legionaries, accustomed to fighting in disciplined formations on open battlefields, found themselves at a distinct disadvantage in the close confines of the forest. Their heavy armor and large shields, so effective in open combat, became liabilities in the dense undergrowth, restricting their movements and making them easy targets for the agile Germanic warriors. Arminius, a keen observer of Roman military doctrine, had anticipated their tactics. He directed his warriors to focus their attacks on the legionaries' flanks and rear, exploiting the gaps in their formations and preventing them from forming a cohesive defense. The forest floor became a chaotic and horrifying tableau of blood and mud as the Roman legions, their ranks shattered, were cut down piecemeal. The Germanic warriors, fueled by years of pent-up resentment and the promise of driving the invaders from their lands, fought with a ferocity and determination that surprised even the most hardened Roman veterans. They were fighting for their homes, their families, and their freedom, and they gave no quarter. The Roman commanders, struggling to regain control of the situation, desperately tried to rally their men, but their orders were drowned out by the din of battle, the screams of the dying, and the triumphant roar of the Germanic warriors. The legions, once symbols of Roman might, were on the verge of utter annihilation. As darkness descended upon the battlefield, casting an eerie pall over the carnage, the remnants of the Roman legions, their numbers decimated, made a desperate stand. They formed a makeshift camp, their backs against a rise, desperately trying to create a defensible position amidst the chaos. The air was thick with the stench of blood, sweat, and fear. The Germanic warriors, emboldened by their success, continued their relentless assault throughout the night, probing the Roman defences, keeping the legionaries off balance and demoralized. The rain continued to fall, turning the battlefield into a sea of mud and gore. The Romans, cold, wet, and exhausted, fought back with the courage of desperation, knowing that surrender meant certain death. Varus, the architect of Rome's humiliation, his dreams of conquest shattered, saw the hopelessness of his situation. He had led his legions into a death trap, his arrogance and miscalculation costing the lives of thousands of his men. Unwilling to face the shame of defeat and capture, he took his own life, falling upon his sword as his world crumbled around him. With their commander dead and their situation growing more desperate by the hour, the surviving Romans made a desperate attempt to break through the Germanic encirclement. Under the cover of darkness, they abandoned their camp, leaving behind their wounded and a vast quantity of supplies, and attempted to flee through the forest. The Romans' desperate flight proved futile. Arminius, anticipating their move, had positioned his warriors along their escape route. The Germanic warriors, energized by their impending victory, fell upon the fleeing Romans, cutting them down as they stumbled through the darkness. The forest echoed with the sounds of pursuit and slaughter. Very few Romans managed to escape the carnage. 3 entire legions, the pride of the Roman army, had been utterly destroyed. Their standards, the sacred eagles that symbolized their honor and prowess, were captured by the Germanic tribes, a devastating blow to Roman prestige and a testament to the magnitude of their defeat. The Battle of Teutoburg Forest was a resounding victory for Arminius and the Germanic tribes, a testament to their courage, cunning, and unwavering determination. It was a victory won against overwhelming odds, a victory that would shatter the myth of Roman invincibility and alter the course of history. For the Romans, the Battle of Teutoburg Forest was a catastrophe of unprecedented proportions, a stark reminder of the limits of their power and the consequences of underestimating their enemies. The defeat sent shockwaves through the Roman world, shaking the empire to its core. Wow, the battle in the Teutoburg Forest really shook up the Roman Empire. It showed everyone that even the mighty Roman army could be beaten. Losing 3 whole legions was a huge deal. Imagine losing 3 entire armies. It was a big hit to their soldiers and their fighting spirit. Augustus, the Roman emperor, had to scramble to get new soldiers and protect the empire's borders. Gap2S. The news of Rome's defeat made other people who had been conquered by Rome think, hey, maybe we can beat them too. Revolts and uprisings started popping up all over the empire, challenging Roman control. Rome had always seemed unbeatable, like a superhero, but now everyone saw they could be hurt. Augustus was a smart guy. He realized things had changed. He gave up on conquering the lands beyond the Rhine River. Instead, he focused on protecting what Rome already had. He built lots of forts and walls along the Rhine and Danube rivers to keep the Germanic tribes out. The Teutoburg Forest battle taught the Romans a hard lesson. It showed them that good leaders are super important and that it's dangerous to think your enemies are weak. They had to rethink how they fought, how they planned their battles, and how they saw the people they were trying to conquer. The aftermath of Arminius's decisive victory at Teutoburg Forest sent shockwaves throughout the Roman world. It halted their eastward expansion and ignited a firestorm of rebellion, forever altering the relationship between Rome and the Germanic tribes. However, this victory did not lead to the immediate expulsion of the Romans from Germanic lands, nor did it result in the immediate unification of the Germanic tribes under Arminius's banner. Despite their shared hatred of Roman rule, the Germanic tribes remained a fractious and often warring collection of independent entities. Old rivalries, territorial disputes, and personal ambitions continued to divide them, preventing the formation of a lasting and unified resistance against Roman power. Arminius, though hailed as a hero and liberator, found himself navigating a treacherous political landscape. His attempts to forge a lasting alliance were constantly undermined by suspicion and intrigue. The Romans, though deeply wounded by their defeat, were far from vanquished. The loss of 3 legions was a severe blow, but the vast resources and manpower of the Roman Empire remained largely intact. Augustus, though shaken by the disaster, quickly moved to reinforce the Rhine frontier. He dispatched troops and resources to prevent further losses and launched punitive campaigns to avenge the humiliation at Teutoburg. Arminius, keenly aware that the Romans would eventually return seeking revenge, attempted to consolidate his position and prepare his people for the inevitable confrontation. He understood that the victory at Teutoburg had brought the Germanic tribes a reprieve, a fragile window of opportunity to unite and build a force capable of resisting the might of Rome. However, the internal divisions and rivalries that had plagued the Germanic tribes for generations continued to undermine his efforts, casting a long shadow over their newfound freedom. After the big win at Teutoburg Forest, things weren't easy for Arminius. He had to keep fighting smaller battles with the Romans, and he also had to deal with arguments and disagreements between the different Germanic tribes. It was like trying to keep a bunch of puppies from fighting each other, only these puppies had swords. The Romans still wanted revenge for their defeat, and they wanted to crush the rebellion. On top of that, some Germanic leaders were jealous of Arminius and wanted to take his place. In the year 17, a Roman general named Germanicus brought a big army across the Rhine River. He wanted to smash the rebellion and get back the eagle standards the Romans lost at Teutoburg. Those eagles were super important to them, like a mascot for their army. Arminius was really smart, though. He knew the forests and swamps better than the Romans, and his warriors could move around faster. He used these advantages to attack the Roman army and cause a lot of damage. Even though the Romans won some battles, Arminius kept them from winning the war. This made him even more famous as a tough enemy, but even though Arminius was winning battles, things weren't going well back home. Some Germanic leaders didn't trust him because he had been trained by the Romans and because he was trying to make the tribes work together more. They thought he was becoming too much like a Roman king, and they didn't like that. Sadly, in the year 21, when Arminius was only 37 years old, he was killed. Not by the Romans, but by members of his own tribe. They were worried about his power and thought he was dangerous. Arminius, the hero of Teutoburg, the man who stood up to Rome and protected his people, died not in battle, but because of disagreements among his own people. It's a sad story, isn't it? He tried to unite his people, but in the end, that's what led to his downfall.